podcast is proudly sponsored by the Therapy Company. Our sponsor has a team of consultant psychiatric and psychotherapy team providing professional mental health diagnosis and treatment to individuals aged 10 and above. They also provide confidential telephone and online therapy services via video links. The Therapy Company treat a huge number of mental health and psychiatric conditions, for example, psychosis, personality disorders, anxiety, depression, mood disorders, phobias, post-traumatic stress disorder, and many more. Law firms and lawyers. The Therapy Company provide medico-legal reports for use in legal proceedings, such as personal injury claims, medical malpractice cases, and workers' compensation disputes. They have partnered up with many law firms from across the country. Partner up with them now to engage their consultants or to get your hands on their top-of-the-range medico-legal reports. Do follow them on all the social media platforms and head on to their website at www.thetherapycompany.co.uk. Hello and welcome to another episode here at the latest with Law Simplified. I am your podcast host, Farine Ali, and today we're joined by an extremely special guest. Our guest is a highly experienced solicitor with over 25 years of experience of practicing law. She is also the founder and owner of an award-winning law firm called Nayyars Solicitors, and she is a celebrity lawyer, having featured on a number of TV programs. Our guest currently appears on live TV, such as BBC Morning Live and Steph's Packed Lunch on Channel 4. Ladies and gentlemen, I am hugely honoured to present to you Ayesha Nayyar. I also want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, the Therapy Company. Please do head on to their website at www.thetherapycompany.co.uk and do reach out to them to engage in their services. Law firms and lawyers, no matter where you are based, please reach out to the Therapy Company as they specialise in medico-legal reports that can be used in a wide range of legal proceedings. Hello and welcome to Law Simplified. How are you doing today, Ayesha?
I'm really good, Farine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honour. Looking forward to it.
It's our honour, actually, Ayesha. We are very used to watching you on the TV, so it's a very much pinch me moment for me. Honestly. So we're delighted to have you join us today. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know your journey to law and beyond. So why don't we crack on and why don't you tell our audiences what inspired you to become a lawyer?
Okay, so I qualified as a lawyer back in 1999. So honestly, I laugh about this all the time. I do feel at times like a dinosaur. I remember I went to one award ceremony and I was sat next to these young lads who were up for I'm saying young lads, but they were probably middle-aged men now, sat there and they were up for an award, and he told me what firm he was at, and I was like, oh my god, I came for an interview at your firm for a training contract, and then I didn't get the job. And he's like, oh really, what year was that? I was like 1995. And he just looked at me, he's like, I wasn't even born then. So, nothing, literally, it was like, it was one of those moments where he's like, how old are you? I was like, oh God, like that was probably about nearly 30 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I've been around a long time. My journey to law is, it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. I went and did a law degree at university. After that, I did the LPC. I went to Chester, and then I tried to get that golden ticket, the training contract that any trainees watching or any paralegals watching know that training contract is all you want when you want to be a solicitor. So I got a training contract, and then I ended up becoming a partner in the firm that I trained at, and I was there for almost 10 years before I left to then set up training courses and then run my own law firm. So my journey to becoming a lawyer is one that's, it's not always been straightforward, because I qualified as a lawyer quite a long time ago when lawyers. It was hard for someone of my background to actually make it into the profession. Now, I do think it's not easy, because nothing's easy anymore, but there are lots of more avenues and doors that have been opened for people to get in there than looking back to when I was trying to break through.
Sure. And so you have been practicing for more than 25 years. Has it gone in a blink of an eye, do you think? Or do you remember the have you felt the journey, actually?
Do you know, that's a really, really good question. I can remember trying to get my foot in a law firm like it was yesterday. And I was old school in the days where, and this is why I do feel like a dinosaur when I tell the story, but I was in the days where there was no internet, believe it or not. And I would get out the yellow pages. Some people probably don't even know what the yellow pages is listening to this, but it was a book with it's a directory. It was a paper directory that you got. And I went through the yellow pages, and there was another one called Thompson's. And I literally went through the yellow pages, and I looked for the names of law firms, and I bought myself a fountain pen, and I got some posh paper, and I hand wrote out every single covering letter to every single law firm that I wrote. I literally wrote them out, and then I printed off a whole load of CVs, like literally, I'm not joking when I say this, Farheen, probably hundreds of CVs. And I wrote my letter individually, and if I made a mistake, I couldn't use Tipex, so I wrote it all out again. And then I posted out, I'm not joking when I say this as well, hundreds of applications to law firms up and down the country. Lots of them were in Manchester. And then every day I'd get, tens of rejections where I didn't get offered an interview. And that, I remember, when you say, do you remember your journey? It looks brilliant now, but what I want people to realize is it wasn't always easy. And there was a lot of struggles that have gone along the way to get to the stage that I'm at now. And eventually, one of those letters didn't offer me a training contract, but offered me a paralegal position in a law firm. And I went and I started working there. And I remember I used to think to myself, I just need one opportunity. That's all I need. Yes. One opportunity. And if I get into a law firm, I will work because I was so desperate for it. I didn't know, I'd never spoken to a solicitor before. I'd never stepped foot in a law firm. I'd not done any real work experience. And I remember just getting that one letter that offered me a paralegal position. It was minimum wage. I can remember it now. I was on £7,000 a year, and I worked like a donkey in that job because I knew that this was my one chance to get ahead, get my foot in the door, impress the right people, and then go on and, make a career. And that's exactly what I did. I did really, really well in that firm. I worked really long hours, and that one little break, that all that struggle was worth it once I got in there and I proved myself.
How inspirational. And actually that sort of demonstrates to the audience, aspiring solicitors, that so long as you stay in the game, you'll make it. You've just got to be patient.
Yeah, there's so many people along the way who lose focus, or they're distracted, or understandably life events take over them as well. And, they'll fall out of it and they'll go back. There's, the number of people I meet who say, oh, I dropped out of uni, or I got married and I had kids, or, I lost focus, or for whatever, or I didn't want to, I just gave up, or I had an illness and then I never went back into it. So my advice to anybody listening is, it's never, ever too late to go and chase that dream that you want, whether that's becoming, any professional or any field or whatever you want. It's never, ever too late. I mean, I set up Nayyars when I was pregnant with my third child. And I had a 5-year-old, I had a 1.5-year-old, and I was having a baby. And everybody said to me, and really on paper, it was absolutely ridiculous what I was doing. I was about to have 3 under 6. I was setting up a law firm that it was a business. It was going to demand a lot of my time. I had 3 kids at home. On paper, this was just a crazy, crazy idea, but it was the best thing I ever did. And I've never, ever looked back. I mean, I didn't have a maternity leave with my third one, and I got straight back into it. But, I always say she's my lucky charm, because once I set up my law firm, my fortunes changed in the sense that the law firm went on to do really, really well. And individually, it's propelled me into, mainstream TV now as a lawyer. So I gave up a lot, and there were a lot of struggles, and there were lots of, sleepless nights and stresses, and there was lots of tears as well, I'll be honest, along the way. But it's all been worth it, because I think, the struggle that I've had I've ended up having the rewards, you know, that it's been worth it.
And thank you so much for being so transparent about it, because everybody goes through that. But as long as you're patient and keep persevering, everybody reach that ultimate goal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's really important, you know, as women, we give ourselves a hard, you know, we juggle a lot. We give ourselves a hard time. You know, that mum guilt is absolutely real. I've got it all the time. But I genuinely believe that if you put that hard work in, and there's no substitute for hard work, that's another motto that I've kind of adopted my whole life. There's no substitute for hard work. There's no, you know, there's no shortcut to being successful in your job or career. You've got to have put the graft in.
Yeah.
But you can do it. You can do it. You know, you can juggle a home, you can juggle your kids, you can juggle, you know, a relationship, you can juggle your work, you can have a little bit of me time. It is all possible. It's hard work and it's not for everyone. But if you really want to do something, never ever doubt yourself, because it is achievable. You've just got to work for it.
Thank you so much for that, Ayesha. Now, you've already mentioned that you went on to establish your own law firm. It is an award-winning law firm, Nayyars Solicitors, and you do specialise in wide-ranging areas of law, from family to litigation to personal injury and immigration. So it's wide-ranging. Many congratulations on that. What led you to set up your own law firm?
So I was a partner in a big law firm in Manchester. I was there, like I say, by the time I'd left, it was probably about 10 years. And I had that big firm mentality where service levels were really high. And then I left because I wanted a work-life balance, and I went to run training courses for solicitors. And while I wasn't in practice, I'd get lots of phone calls from friends, and they'd say to me, oh, you know, I've got a family law issue, and can you recommend a good solicitor? Or I've had an accident, I want a good solicitor, or medical negligence or immigration, whatever it may be. And hand on my heart, I used to hesitate in who can I really recommend that I can send you to. You're going to part with your hard-earned cash, and you're going to effectively want that service. Who can I send you to? And I just used to struggle to name one person. That sounds terrible to say. I used to struggle to name someone that I could say, right, go there too. And that was the thinking behind setting up the law firm. I was like, literally, these people need help. And I'm a lawyer, and who can I really say that this person is going to give you the gold standard and be worth every penny? And so for that reason, I thought, well, there's a gap in the market. There's a gap in the market. And I know I'm the only person I can vouch for really, you know, in life is myself.
Yes.
So that's what I did. I started up a law firm because I saw a gap in the market. Well, I'm not saying there is a gap in the market in the sense that there are amazing solicitors out there, but in my head, I saw a gap where I thought I can set up a small law firm where you are giving exactly the same service that you would get in a big law firm, but by an individual, by someone who cares. And I've been in a big law firm, and I know how it works. And, you know, I know how clients are a cog in the wheel that turns around, and they come and they go and chop. And, you know, I've seen that mentality of you're just a number. I've seen it firsthand. I'm not saying it happens in every big law firm, but I've certainly seen it where your client is just a number. I wanted more than that. I wanted every single client that I acted for to not just be a number, to be a person, to get that service level that they quite rightly deserve when they're parting with money. And I say this, and it's almost a bit of a corny line, but honestly, it's so true, Farheen. Yeah. Every single client I act for, by the end of it, right, they become a friend. That's another story. I'm really sociable. That's another story. But every single client I act for, if I have a woman of a certain age come in, I think, right, she could be my mum. If my mum walked into a law firm, what service would I want her as her daughter to get? And if I get, you know, a young lad that comes in, I think, you know, he could be my younger brother, he could be my son. If he had this legal problem, what service would I want him to get? And that's exactly, when people walk through the door at Nayyars Solicitors, that's the service I want to give him. If that was my brother, that was my mom, that was my cousin, that was my sister, that was one of my children, what service level should they be getting? What service level do I want them to get? That's exactly what I give all my clients. And I think that's what sets us aside from other law firms. You're not just a name, you're not just a number when you come to Nayyars. We genuinely want to get you the best result that you can possibly get in your case. And I always say this, and it's a bit of a motto, I don't go down without a fight, Farheen, and that's what I'm known for. You're not going to win every single case, and I've got to be realistic about that. Sometimes things don't go your way. The case itself may just not be that strong, or the judge may not just be with you on the day, or your client may go to court and not give the best evidence, or something may come out that you weren't aware of. So you may not win everything, and that's the reality. But at Nayyars, we are not going to go down without a fight. We are going to throw everything at it. If you watch my stories on social media, you'll know I'm a workaholic. I know you do. But I literally, honestly, I take on my clients' stresses. That's my job to do. That's what you pay me to do. And I think that's what makes the difference. We've never had a client who's left us who said, and I'm really honest as well, you don't win everything. No one's going to ever have 100% success rate. But the cases that we maybe didn't get the result we want, well, you still have clients who turn around to you and say, no, thank you, because we did everything that we could. And that's all I want to hear. There was no shortfall, or there was no stone left unturned in our quest for justice for this client. And that's the mentality we have. And I think that's the gap I saw, and that's the gap I genuinely think we filled at Nayyars.
I've had a chat with you a few times now, Ayesha, and honestly, you're an incredible human being. I say that very much from my heart. And you're right, we do stalk you on social media. We've been watching your Instagram stories, and we've been seeing that actually you've been working quite late at night as well. And that really shows exactly what you've just said, that you're very much invested in your clients. And it's so great to hear that. And what is your vision for Nayyars Solicitors?
So the law firm's been going 12 years now. So my youngest is 12 this July. And so it was set up in March, and she was born in July. So literally 3 months later, I had my third child. So what's my vision now? We've done amazing as a law firm. We're up for another award actually this year. We've won lots of awards over the last decade as a law firm, individually. So my vision for Nayyars is just to grow as a firm, to grow as a business, to get recognised more, and just carry on giving the service levels that it has done. I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to retire and pass on the reins. So I want to pass over, a business and a firm and an organisation that embodies what I want it to. So yeah, there's a lot of work still to be done. But that's my vision for Nayyars, to just go on being as successful as it is.
And you've just done amazingly. You are changing lives by being the person that you are and the values that you've instilled within the firm. Can you tell our audiences about any memorable cases or any shocking cases that you've dealt with?
So over the years, like I said, I've been practicing about 25 years. There's been so many different cases that come to mind. That's a really good question. One of the big ones, the main case that I remember, because it's propelled me onto mainstream TV, is the acid attack case that I acted for the victims of. It was the UK's largest acid attack. It took place in a nightclub. That was the one case that, when that came in, it's memorable, not just because my clients had horrific facial injuries from an acid attack, but because it launched really me into this fight against acid crime, which led to lots of other doors being opened. So that's one memorable case. But look, over the years, Farheen, I've acted for so many different clients in so many different stages of their life, most of the clients I've acted for are at their lowest, they're at their most vulnerable, they're completely broken. I've done a lot of death cases, and the ones that, with my death cases, that they'll stick out, I mean, they never ever leave you. I've sat with families. I remember a case where, I went to see a family where their young son had been knocked over leaving school, and it was one of those visits that you go and it's going to be difficult as a lawyer, and you've got to keep professional and you've got to be straight. But that particular case, because I had a child of the same age, and just sitting with the parents, and whenever you act in death cases, they will break the story down for you in such minute detail, because they picture themselves that moment and what happened and what led to it and what they saw and how they dealt with it and the aftermath, and it just puts you back there. with them. And honestly, the death cases that I've had, I remember that child, I mean, again, I've got to keep client confidential, but that child one was a really, really difficult one, because, you know, it was a child that was exactly the same age as one of my children, and, you know, just to get that phone call and rush there, and it was horrendous. And then I remember having another one where an elderly lady had lost her only child, and her story just incredible. So the fatal accidents, the serious injury ones are really sad. But then, you know, we do lots of work surrounding children as well, where, you know, dads aren't able to see their children. We do a lot of family work, and their cases that I'm very, very passionate about, where people are being denied access, parents are being denied access to see their children. So, you know, over the years, Raheem, there's been so many different cases, but every single one, you never ever forget your clients. They probably forget me, but I never ever forget all of the clients that I've acted for. And for me, you said at the start of this interview that it's an honor for you to interview, but I feel like when clients choose me to act for them, that it's an honor to be chosen, because you're at that stage in your life, you're helping someone most of the time at their most vulnerable, at their most needy. So it's a massive responsibility for you to take on. So yeah, all my clients, all the cases that I've done over the years, every single one, you know, I still think about my clients all the time. Yeah, they're special to me.
Well, they can't forget you, Ayesha. I'm sure they watch you on the telly.
I know, I do. I have clients and they're like, oh my God, she's my lawyer, she's my solicitor. Or I'll meet someone and they'll say, do you know, oh, I mean, the funny thing is, I have clients who come to me now and say, you acted for my dad, when I'm like, oh God, how old am I feeling today? But they're literally like, oh, you did a case for my dad about 25 years ago, and he said, if you ever need a lawyer, I've got this problem now. I had someone who came to me and said, you did my dad's divorce. I'm like, oh my goodness, right? Literally, yeah, I'm still here. He said, you did my dad's divorce about 20 years ago, and can you now do mine? So yeah, I mean, every single client, I absolutely love my clients, as you can tell.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely. It's so refreshing to hear that. Actually, I actually had a goosebump moment there when you mentioned about, you know, how you feel when clients entrust you with at their very vulnerable stages in their life. You've just mentioned about the acid attack and the death cases, and obviously it has a long lasting effect. Emotionally, I think it's very distressing. How do you deal with that, Ayesha?
Okay, so again, that's a really good question. My sensible head is stay as professional as possible. I remember there was one journey to go and see a family whose daughter had died. And again, she was a young child who died it was medical negligence. And I went with my trainee solicitor, and on the way, as I was telling him about it, I was getting a little bit choked up, and he said, are you going to cry, Ayesha? And I was like, no, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to be really, really professional, because, you know, no, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I literally got in, and within about 5 minutes, he opened his own bag and he was just passing me tissues.
Oh.
He was literally just passing me tissues because I was crying. So it is really hard, but how do I deal with that? And at the end, I'm always literally, through my tears, I say to them, this is so unprofessional. I'm really sorry. I'm crying. I didn't come here to cry. But I think, you know, I'm only human, and it does resonate with you. But what that always does is it lights that fire inside me. When I sit with a family who've had any kind of injustice, you know, obviously it's devastating, it's really upsetting, but it you know, it lights that fire within me to get them that result that they actually deserve. So yeah, it's hard. And, you know, I often, you know, I'll try as hard as I can to switch off from it, but you don't always. You know, I've had cases where awful things have happened to clients, and, you know, it can be a range of things, and yeah, it does stay with you. But I'm at the stage in my career now where I am genuinely blessed in that I can help people. I can help them when they're in a legal problem. So if I can do that, then that's, you know, then that gives me some comfort. So for example, in the family that we had where the little girl had died in a medical negligence accident, her dad had never gone back to work. Everything had gone to pot at home. The mum was suffering from depression. So what we immediately were able to do was they didn't want money. And it's never, you know, with that situation, it's never about money, and no money is ever going to compensate you for that loss. But what we could do as lawyers is we can make their financial stress a little bit easier, because dad was the main breadwinner. Dad never went back to work because he himself was coping with this loss. So we immediately got an interim payment from the other side, financial. We got a lump sum, help with the finances, help pay the bills. Mum was suffering from depression. We got helping so that we could get care. And we got cleaners in to help clean the house. We got other helping for the kids, etc. So things like that, little parts of the jigsaw around. Obviously the loss is huge, but what we were able to do was just make other stuff a bit easier so they could grieve. And that in itself, I remember them saying to me afterwards, that time where we just couldn't do anything, you were able to fix stuff for us. So that gives you, obviously as a lawyer, that gives you a lot of comfort. You know, we get a bad press as lawyers. You know, people think that we're just these greedy, money-making people who are sat office, but we're not. You know, I know so many other lawyers that are doing, you know, we do fantastic things for people. And if we can alleviate any of your problems, then, you know, that's, you know yourself, anybody listening to this will know that mental stress is absolute torture. So if we can alleviate that in any way, then, you know, it's a job well done.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ayesha. So we're now going to move on to your journey to TV. Can you tell our audiences what led you to establishing this very successful career now in TV and showbiz?
Okay, so the TV and showbiz was kind of fluke, really. I didn't plan on, it wasn't in the game plan. I don't think it ever is for any lawyer, is it? I want to make myself, you know, famous and get onto TV. It just kind of naturally happened. I did a high profile case where I sat with the press within that trial, and then after the trial I gave a lot of TV interviews, and they liked me. They liked what I was able to say. They liked the way I explained things. And I then went on to BBC Breakfast. I did that a couple of times, and then on the back of that I ended up doing quite a lot of radio. And then one day, so I've acted for victims of crime for a number of years, and then one day, how I got my break was, I remember it really clearly. I was sat in Costa and I got a phone call, and they said, it's a producer from the BBC, can I just take your views on crime? And I remember thinking, what? And I must have just, I literally had 10 minutes before my radio show started. I do a radio show on an Asian radio station. I had 10 minutes. And I thought, I just sat there in Costa having a drink. And I thought, well, I'll just give you my views. And they said, well, what do you think about prisons? And I said, well, they're not. I think they said to me, you know, what do you think about crime in this country? And I said, well, it's going through the roof, isn't it? You know, knife crimes. And this was when we had the knife crime epidemic. I said, look, knife crime's going through the roof. Something needs to be done about it. And they said, well, what do you think about criminals if they're caught? What do you think should happen to them? I said, well, they need to have tougher sentences. Our prisons are revolving doors. We need to do something about it. I keep seeing people who are getting these short sentences come back out and straight away. I think there's been a few high profile cases where killers had only recently been released from prison for other crimes, and there was uproar. And I said, well, people need to be locked away for longer. If you have a propensity to commit crime, and that's you choose to lead that life of crime, then we need to lock you up for longer, so you're not out on our streets committing these crimes to innocent people. And they were like, wow. And they said, well, what do you think about prisons? I said, well, they need to be tougher, don't they? I'm sick of seeing prisons that are cushy numbers. You know, we've got poverty out there. Prison should literally mean porridge. I remember saying this line, they loved it. Porridge should mean porridge. That's what you should be getting when you go to prison. And she was literally like, interesting. Apparently later, when I got the TV program, they said when she spoke to me, they'd hit TV gold. She was Northern, she was Asian, she was cocky, she was feisty, she had all the answers. And they just said, literally, they felt like they hit TV gold when they had that telephone conversation with me. And then on the back of that, we did a whole TV program where there were two lawyers that had opposing sets of views on the UK's growing crime problem. And I was exactly that viewpoint of, you know, crime pays. We need to be tougher on our criminals, violent criminals, especially lock them up. And, you know, my view at the program at the start of it was literally throw away the key. And I did a program with Crystal Casey now, who I know you've interviewed for these podcasts.
Yes.
And Chris was very much the opposite view, that prisons don't work. being tough on criminals is pointless. And he was, you know, we need to rehabilitate. So as a duo, we went out onto the streets, and we literally onto the streets, and we investigated Britain's growing crime problem at the time. And that was a 5-part series that aired, called Crime Are We Tough Enough?
Amazing. And what was it like actually doing that series? So you interviewed prison officers and ex-villains. What was that like?
So it was an amazing program to be part of. And if I'm honest, when I first got the program, I didn't appreciate the significance of what I was going to be doing. So it was 5 episodes, and in those 5 episodes, we went out to prisons, we went to hospitals, we went out with the police, we went and met ex-gang members,
Yes.
and we went into schools, and we just investigated literally what was going on. So when I went out with the police, I went out with Greater Manchester Police. When I went out with the police, we, you know, interviewed them and said, you know, what's going on in the streets? How often are you finding knives? What's happening when you find a knife victim? What do you do? Well, what can we do to stop it? We then met victims, families of people who'd lost their children to knife crime, and we saw the aftermath. We went into prisons, and I spoke to people who'd actually committed knife crime and said, you know, what was going on in your head? What do you think we can do? What could we have done as society to stop you doing this? And then I went to a hospital and cried, because it was really sad, where I sat down in A&E with a A&E consultant who said, we have children as young as 9 years old coming in with stab wounds, where they've been stabbed by other gang members. There's children as young as 9 in this country, and I had a 9-year-old at the time. And then I went out with the police into a police station, saw the police amnesty. Honestly, it was the most fascinating program to do, not just because it aired and it was brilliant, but just from a personal insight, to see what's going on in our inner city streets. I went out with ex-gang member.
That sounds very exciting, actually.
Honestly, and we took part in a raid. It was just, from a life experience perspective, it was one of those, you know, you said it at the start, but pinch me moments where you think, wow, this is big and I'm part of it. So yeah, no, I absolutely love doing that. And then that got me lots of other TV programs.
Yes. And do you still maintain, Ayesha, that sentences should be harsher?
So the program was a journey, I'll be honest with you, where I started off literally, you know, lock them up and throw away the key. And then by the end of it, I do see the rehabilitation side. I do see the, you know, locking people in a dark room all day and then just letting them out back in society isn't going to work. But I do stand by sentences on long enough in this country. There are certain crimes. So for example, burglary, it's literally, I think there was, at the time, there was something like a 77% revolving door rate, where burglars who burgle houses, they are re-offending within, I think it was literally within 2 years, they re-offended again. So these are serial people, these people who serial burglars who keep coming into your home and keep robbing you, and keep breaking in. And so for people who are serial offenders, I absolutely say keep your sentences long. So yeah, I mean, I'll always be swayed a little bit, but I do stand with what I originally believed.
I'm sure when Chris Casey is watching this, he'll be commenting, no, Ayesha,
we're quite good friends. We're quite good friends, and we're quite good friends, and it was a journey for both of us, to be honest. It was a journey for both of us, and I think we had so much respect for each other during the filming of that. And you know what, I do see where Chris is coming from, but you know, my answer to Chris was always, you know, come and sit with families that I work with and see the long-lasting, life-changing effect crime has on them. Even something that you might think isn't a big deal, but just, you know, just getting your house broken into. I remember as a child, our house was broken into, and I must have been about 12 years old at the time. And I still, and this is no joke, Farine, I still, you know, 9 times out of 10, when I pull up in my drive now, I have this, we've not been broken into. I don't know But that goes back probably to that childhood trauma of, we were broken into once and I was probably about 11 or 12. And now that thought of being broken into, it has stayed with me.
Talk about the other TV programs that you do and your experiences on there.
Okay, so at the moment, I'm a legal expert on various different TV programs. So I am a legal expert on Rip Off Britain. I do BBC Morning Live. I have also done Steph's Pat Lunch. I do, and I pop up on various different TV programs, just little snippets. I've done The One Show as well. And I go on as a legal expert who will give advice on different areas of law. So it could be divorce, it could be a consumer problem. So you've had some work done by builders, and what can you do if that's gone wrong? We've done lots on parking fines, we've done lots on neighbour disputes. So it can be lots of different legal topics that somebody needs advice on. So members of the public. I do a call-in show as well, where people call in on one of my TV programmes.
Amazing. And when are you on the TV next, Ayesha? So
I'm on Tuesday. I'm actually
right.
on this Tuesday. So one of the programs that I do, I'm on probably every week.
Yeah.
So once a week, you'll find me somewhere, Farheen. If you're looking for me, reach me on TV. I'm probably on every week on one of my different TV programs.
Amazing. And I just want to say at this moment in time that those watching this podcast, do follow Ayesha Nayyar on Instagram and other social media platforms. She does share her day-to-day events and we watch it. And it's actually very fascinating to see the behind the scenes whilst you're shooting those programs as well, actually, and some of the great fun that you have on the set.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know what? TV for me it's just this amazing, fun journey that I'm having, and long may it continue.
Yes.
But it's one of those places that you go to where, like probably everybody listening to this podcast, when you're on the other side of the TV screen, you just see the end finished product. You don't know what goes on behind.
Mm-hmm.
And it always looks great and it looks glamorous and it looks fun. And it actually is. And you go, and it is always a great day being on TV. And I think, because I've got that mentality of, I'm just going to go and enjoy myself. It's not my day job. I'm just going to have a great day. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to end up on TV. I'm just going to enjoy myself. And I go with that mentality. And I always leave having had, honestly, a fantastic day. But one of the myths people always say to me, what's it like being on TV? And you would imagine that when you went onto TV, there'd be lots of, I don't know, big-headed, snooty people but it's the absolute opposite. Everybody I meet is just lovely. They're really warm. They're welcoming. And, I've got so many really, really good friends in TV now that are just like me and you. But previously I'd watched them on the screen, and I've got their numbers now in my phone. It's like, literally, how's that happen? But yeah, they're just normal people, everybody on TV like me and you.
One last question about this, Ayesha, before we move on. Do you ever have a moment where you think, actually, I shouldn't have said that live on TV, or do you have those type of moments?
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, of course you do. I mean, it's not so much I'm always going on thinking, I must not swear. I must not. I mean, when I say swear, I don't mean big swears, but even, certain words could be seen to be blasphemous, or, just odd words, or just, I hope I never say anything that's incorrect is probably the right way. So a lot of the TV programs that I do are live. So, you've got to be really careful that you're saying things that are accurate, they're correct. No one's going to ever take offense to them. You can't crack a joke that me and you might crack, but you couldn't crack it on TV because it could be seen to, if it's taken out of context, for example. So that element, I sometimes think, but I never have, to be honest. I've always been absolutely fine and professional. But I do think, though, sometimes, it's a lot of the stuff I do is live. So, I'll come back and I'll watch it and be like, should I have said that, or should I have said? But then look, when you're on so much, that's the beauty of live TV. There's no second takes. You go on, you do it, and you leave. So, and it's always fine. I often come off set and I'm like, was that good? But then I'll come home, and eventually, about a week later, when I watch it, I'm like, actually, that was okay. Yes. So we all do that, don't we? We're so hard on ourselves, aren't we?
No, we are very, very sort of critical when it comes to ourselves. Well, thank you so much for that, Ayesha. I'm just going to ask you now to just simplify a piece of law, specifically family law, if you will, please, for our audiences.
Okay, so this is an area that we're really, really busy in at the moment. We've massively grown word of mouth. I mean, the simplest thing I could say to for example, about divorces, a big issue that people have is when they are going to get divorced, do they have a reason to get, they almost in that first phone call justify to you why they're getting divorced. Or it'll be this long story about, my wife did X, Y, Z, or my husband did X, Y. And what they don't realize, if I could simplify one area, is the laws on divorce changed last year. And now they used to be, you had to satisfy one of 5 grounds before you could get a divorce. That's gone now. You now just have to say that your marriage has irretrievably broken down, and it's literally a box that you tick. And the law doesn't need the reason why. We trust you. We're not going to say, well, why has it broken down? So if there's one thing that I could kind of de-simplify or take the myth out of, do you need of course you'll have a reason for getting divorced, but as lawyers, you simply need to now say to me, my marriage has broken down, and I want a divorce. I don't really need to go behind that. Previously, there were grounds. There was unreasonable behavior. You had to cite examples of it. There was adultery. Has he deserted you, or she deserted you? Has she consent? All of that has gone now. There's a box that you tick. And then divorce itself, there's obviously the finances that go with divorce. And that's another myth that people have, that it's still there, that if you we have lots of people who come to us and they'll say, lots of clients will come to us and they'll say, well, everything was on her name or his name, and that doesn't matter, because when you get married, you become one person financially, and the starting point is when you split, regardless of who owns what or who worked and who didn't, the starting point is there's a 50-50 split of your joint assets, regardless of who owns them. So yeah, family law is one of those areas. You can tell I'm quite passionate about this, because I do it a lot. But family law, and again, this is a time where people will come to, and they're very, very vulnerable. We had a client who came in recently who, and you could tell he'd not slept for days, and he was just like, I just don't know what to do. We sat him down and he's like, we're going to sort this out. And then a week later he came back in and he was a different man, and we were like, how? And he said, well, you took all of that stress away from me. And that's what I always say to clients, that's what you're paying me to do. That's my job, to help you kind of take the emotion out of it. Let's sort out the legalities, and let's just work out a plan of how we're going to move forward with this. So as dark as it may seem, and family law can be a really, really dark and difficult area for both of us, me as a lawyer and you as a client, but let's just kind of break it down and make a plan and move forward with it. And that's all that clients want.
Thank you so much for that, Ayesha. And very lastly, we're just going to do a quick fire round. I just have 2 questions. Not too hard, I promise.
Okay, fire away. I have no idea what you're about to ask me, so let's see how good I am in my answers.
So any advice you would give to your younger self?
So to my younger self, I would say believe in yourself and just trust the process, which sounds like a real cliche, but time, experience, confidence, it comes with age as well. You're clearly, Farine, a whole lot younger than me. I can tell by just looking at you. For those of you who are listening to this as a visual, as audio and not visual, Farine is way younger than me. But I think you get that confidence with age as well, and every decade you evolve and you grow. And I'm at a stage now where I'm so comfortable in who I am, and I've trusted in God's plan and process for me. So yeah, I think if I could rewind the clock and talk to a 16-year-old Ayesha, I'd say to you, just believe in yourself, because good things are going to happen to you.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for that, Ayesha. And lastly, one regret that Ayesha Nayyar has.
So from a work perspective, I think one regret that I probably have is not starting my business sooner. Okay. I think I hesitated because I had young children, and I had 2 children, and I wanted to set up a law firm, but I just didn't know how I'd get the work-life balance in, and I just hesitated. And I wish I'd done it sooner, because it was the best thing that I did, the best thing that I could do career-wise for me. So if there is anybody listening to this, and whether that's a law firm or whether that's any business that you want to set up, just do it. Don't procrastinate, don't think about it. And you know what? So what if it doesn't work? So what if it doesn't fail? It fails. You're better off having tried than have never given it a go. And, you know, inshallah, for me, it's been a successful journey. And if I'd never taken that step because I thought, well, I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a baby, and I'm having another baby, you know, is it ever going to work? And I'm just so glad I did it at the time I did it. So in terms of regret, I wish I'd set up my business sooner. And then in terms of personal regrets, I don't really think, I'll be honest, I don't think I've got any, not because I think that my life is perfect, far from it, but just because I'm, you know, from a faith perspective, I just accept whatever Allah has chosen to give me, good or bad. That is what was written for me. So, you know, that is generally my motto in life. That's what Allah planned for me, and I will accept it. So, you know, and I'm not, of course I've made mistakes personally, professionally, everybody does, we're all human, but as long as you learn and you grow from them and you think that there was something good behind that, even though it was very negative, then, you know, I'm happy with that. So personally, probably no real regrets.
Thank you so much, Ayesha. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm just going to ask you for some closing comments for aspiring solicitors, for professionals and people that are watching this podcast, please.
Okay, so look, I hope I've inspired some of you to listen. In my journey, I am an inner city child of the 80s. Growing up in Manchester, I had never spoken to a solicitor before. I had absolutely zero contacts. I'd mixed, you know, I had very, very limited mixing of people, professionals. I just wasn't worldly. And I have done it absolutely on my own. I've not had any helping hands along the way. And I look back at that 16-year-old girl who literally had nothing. And I think, well, if she can do it with her hard work and her determination, and I didn't have the confidence that I have now, as I say, you know, that comes with age. If she can do it, then so can you. So there should be nobody listening to this podcast who thinks, I can't do it, because the only limits out there are the ones that you are placing on yourself. The world is absolutely your oyster. There are so many opportunities. Just go out and get them. And you know what? If one door closes, another one will open. And that's the way you've got to see it. So if there's anybody listening, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're somebody who's aspiring to any profession, or you want to set up a business and you're looking at everybody around you, because look, let's be honest, Farine, everybody wants, there's this get rich quick idea out there. Everybody wants to be at the top without the hard work. But one thing I'll say to you, everyone who's flying high in their careers now, at some stage there's been a solid hard graft that's taken them to get there. So yeah, no, absolutely believe in yourself, put the hard work in, and you know, inshallah, rewards will come.
Thank you so much for that, Ayesha. And actually, I just remembered a quote somebody said to me, that this individual was in business and actually it had a law firm as well. And he said to me that I failed my way to the top. You know, so many failures along the way, and that people see the successes, but they don't see the failures.
I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Honestly, for anybody listening, and you know I have lots of followers on Instagram who watch me. You know, you see the highs, you see the lows on my story. You know, you see the late nights, and you see the pluses. And but then what I'll also say is you don't see everything on there. So social media is very, very deceptive. You know, my social media, for example, people say to me, oh my God, Ayesha, you're so busy, you do so much. I'm like, you haven't got a clue what really goes on, because obviously I don't post a lot of my family life on there, etc. So you know, everything that glistens is not gold, but you can make your own gold as well at the same time.
Thank you so much, Ayesha, again. It's been an absolute honor to have you on this podcast.
You. I've really enjoyed speaking to you.
I know, me too. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ayesha Nayyar, isn't she just a phenomenal human being? Hugely honored to have interviewed Ayesha today. Do follow Ayesha on all the social media platforms as she actively shares her day-to-day activities, and I tell you, it's so fascinating to follow her. I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, the Therapy Company, once again for backing this interview. Please do head on to their website at www.thetherapycompany.co.uk and do reach out to them to engage in their mental health services. The Therapy Company also specialise in providing top-of-the-range medical legal reports. So if you are a law firm, no matter where you are based, please do reach out to them, as they can provide these reports for a wide range of legal proceedings. Please do also head on to our website at www.law-simplified.co.uk to check out our resources. Please follow us everywhere, even on TikTok, because we're trying to get to 1,000 followers so we can get on these lives every day. But yes, whatever you do, please keep in contact with the law, and thank you so much for tuning in. Until I see you the next time, goodbye and take care.